Hi, this is Rabbi Harvey Hoffman from Century Pines Jewish Center, located in Century Village in Pembroke Pines, Florida, discussing the Parshat Hashavua, the Torah portion of the week, coming up tomorrow, and that's July 1st of this year, 2017. That is Parshat Chukat. Parshat Chukat is an extremely unusual parsha because at the very beginning of it, and on through the end of it, we discuss issues that show us, in no uncertain terms, that there are things that God wants which we have no rational explanation for and may never understand. Starting off with the red heifer, a statute which is so deep and so difficult to understand that Rashi himself comes out and says, quote, I do not understand the meaning of this statute. That being the case, we go to a later episode in that same Parsha, and we come to the portion where Moses is commanded in chapter 20 of the book of Numbers to speak to the rock in order to extract water from it so the people can drink. But Moses, please take your staff as well. Moses remembers that when he first had to get water from the rock back after the crossing of the Red Sea, he was commanded to strike the rock with the staff. So right now he's somewhat confused, I suppose, because now he's told, bring your staff, but don't hit the rock with it. Speak to the rock instead. Okay. And as you know, I'm sure, when the people complain, he loses his temper and says, hear you, rebels. He insults the people, calls them rebels. Hear you, O rebels. Shall we now get water from this rock? And instead of speaking to the rock, he hits it. God gives the people the water that they wanted, but punishes Moses and his brother Aaron by saying, you did not sanctify my name as much as you should have in how you handled the situation. Therefore, neither one of you is going into the promised land. The people will go into the promised land, but you won't. Well, there's one comment here in the stone edition in the Art Scroll Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, that explains why Moses struck the rock instead of speaking to it as God commanded him. Quote, God had commanded Moses to speak to the rock that had given water before, but he could not find it. He spoke to a different rock, but nothing happened. Moses reasoned that if he had found the proper rock, speaking would have sufficed. But since he could not find that rock, he thought he would have to strike a different one, following the precedent of Exodus when he performed the miracle by striking the stone. Otherwise, he reasoned, why had God commanded him to take the staff with him? He struck a rock, but since that was not how the miracle was supposed to come about, only a trickle of water emerged, so he struck it again. Whereupon a torrent of water began to flow. That's Rashi's comment. Apparently, Moses should have spoken to rock after rock until he came upon the right one, but the people's intemperance provoked him to anger. As the sages put it, once he became angry, he erred in judgment and struck the rock. Well, excuse me, but I'm really at a loss here to understand why God handled it the following way. And I don't mean to be blasphemous or irreverent to the creator of the universe, but my thinking is, well, why didn't God prevent that problem from even arising in the first place by telling Moses what rock to pick? Which rock should he speak to? That way the problem would have been avoided altogether. Secondly, when we talk about exactly what Moses' sin was when he hit the rock instead of speaking to it, we get any number of opinions from these wonderful scholars throughout the ages. But to make a long story short, all of those commentaries have one thing in common. Ready? They fail miserably to make you feel better about why God punished Moses and Aaron by not letting them into the promised land that they had led the people to over 40 years. The people ate Moses and Aaron's heart out with complaint after complaint after complaint, easily 10 times through the 40-year wandering desert experience. And yet, these people, the complainers, get to go in the promised land, and Moses and Aaron don't. Something's wrong with that picture. We live in a day and age in which if a CEO of a corporation is not doing as good a job as he used to, the board of trustees meets behind his back, votes to replace him with someone else, but typically he is exited from the scene with honor and dignity and respect for who he is and how he had to put up with aggravation after aggravation and do the best job he could. He's given the dignity that he deserves by being given a dinner. He sits in the middle of the dais. He's given the gold watch after speaker talks on his behalf and praises him. He's given a wonderful retirement package. His hand is shaken by everybody in the room. And he can even come in time after time to pick up his personal belongings. That's how he should be treated, with honor, with dignity, and respect for who he is. Why couldn't Moses have been treated that way, and his brother Aaron? Why, in fact, could he not have been, he and Aaron both, have been allowed to to accompany, rather, the Jewish people into the promised land, and he could be used as a consultant? Joshua, his protege, would now take over, and Joshua could ask him, Moses, there's a certain situation which is perplexing me. Since you know the law better than anybody else does, what is your opinion about it? It would have been a respectable way, or a respectful, rather, way to show Moses and Aaron that they still served a purpose in society, even though they were no longer the leaders. Instead, they're told outright that they cannot even enter the promised land that they themselves, through all the aggravation, led the people to. The real life lesson to be learned from this episode in Parashat Chukat, in the book of Numbers, is not what Moses' sin was, but rather that there are times in history and times in our own personal lives where we see God doing something which is so difficult to understand, we may never understand exactly why he did what he did. There was a time when I had to lead a Mincha Ma'ariv minyan in a house of mourning. A young married couple had just lost their 8-week-old daughter to a brain tumor. And you ask your God, why did you do this to this innocent little girl? What did she do to deserve death? Why? Answer: there is no answer. There is no answer why God treated Moses and Aaron the way he did. There's no answer why God does numerous other countless things that he does. That's what makes him God and us human beings. We don't understand everything that he does. How do we continue being religiously oriented towards God in spite of the fact that time after time he does things which we might find so inexcusable we can't understand why he did it? In people's research on the scenes of what used to be Jewish ghettos in Germany, someone once came across a piece of scrap paper with Yiddish on it, and they understood the language. And the writing on it was as follows. It was from, obviously, a Holocaust victim. His name, he signs at the end of the piece of paper, was Yasala HaChasid, Yasala the Chassid. And Yasala writes on the piece of paper, God, I no longer have any reason whatsoever to love you, but you know something? In spite of that, I love you anyway. Although Yasala went through the smokestacks in Auschwitz, no doubt, he left us with a life lesson to be learned, apropos the incident that we see here with the unjust behavior that God exercises towards Moses and Aaron. There are times when God gives us no reason to love him or even pray to him, much less love him. And yet, somehow, we want to communicate to him anyway. And somehow, in spite of everything, we love him. We love the life he created. We love every minute of being alive. And we love the opportunity to thank him for being alive, in spite of the fact that there are times that he confuses us and baffles us and makes us wonder if he even exists, much less whether or not we should pray to him. This is Rabbi Harvey Hoffman from Century Pines Jewish Center, located in Century Village of Pembroke Pines, wishing you a good Shabbos and a good week.